Hey everyone, this is Josh at CollectionDX.com. I know I kind of said I wasn't going to do video reviews anymore, but I think what it comes down to is more like I'm not going to do them that often. So here we are. This is the Figma Izuku Midoriya from My Hero Academia, affectionately known as Deku, is his hero name. If you don't know My Hero Academia, you are probably living under a rock. It is the biggest thing in anime last few years. And it just happens to be a great show that I actually do watch. So I actually am reviewing something of a show I'm a fan of. So it's a Figma release, and this release is brought to you by HobbyLink Japan. So if you want one of these, you get one there. So you can see the boxes. Yeah, Figma box, nothing revolutionary. Shows you the poses you can put them in and kind of the different accessories. But let's look inside. So out of the box, you can see we have a little instruction booklet, and then we have the variant accessories at the bottom and the little Figma bag that you get. And then of course you can see the figure in the casing. Again, they wrap these figures in plastic and then they put them in the case. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I'm thinking it's to avoid any interaction with the paint on the packing plastic, maybe. I don't know, but it sometimes feels like it defeats the purpose of having a window box if you're just going to cover the figure in this weird sheet of plastic anyways. It really does sort of affect your viewing pleasure in a way. So if you're one of those people that likes to, leave things in a box, which you shouldn't be, but if you are, I can see how this would be a little frustrating. So here you can see everything the figure comes with. He's got a cowl, a couple of variant faces, like an extra wrist joint. Here's your Figma holder that usually holds all the different hands. You have a sheet. This is cool. It's a sheet of adhesive tears or sweat drops for his nervous face, and you get the stand. The figure itself is really nicely done. Figma does such a great job hiding all of the different joints, and it just creates a remarkable looking figure. In fact, the only thing that really mars the look of the figure is the little hole in the back for the stand, but we'll excuse it. Check out the detail in the hair and the subtle shading. Even the underside of the boots has a really great texture, just showing the attention to detail that Good Smile puts into these things. Articulation is really good, and they do a pretty good job, like I said, of hiding the joints, but if you look close you can tell that they're in there. So from the head you're on a ball, and then the chest has a ball, and then the waist has a ball. These are on a sort of a barbell kind of ball and peg joint, and you notice you'll have a little gap in the shoulders if you pull them out, but for the most part they have a great range. I'd get a little worried over time about if you kept these in a pose for a long period of time. This kind of a rubber might get stuck in that pose. Double jointed elbow, but it's limited a little bit by the design. The hands are on a ball joint, and there's a little bit of a the I don't know what you call this part of the glove, but that's molded into the arm. You get your pouches. You get a good range of motion in the legs, and because he's flexible, you can just don't feel too bad about trying to get a good pose out. Knees have a double joint, and the middle of the knee pad kind of stays in the middle, and it really creates a nice sort of profile that you don't get with a lot of double jointed knees on like American figures. You have a little swivel, and again with the boot, this part of the boot is separate than the rest of the boot, but you have your rotate and tilt, and then you have a little toe articulation. One thing worth noting is that this is based on his first season costume. His costume does change a bit as he goes through the series and learns a bit more about his power, but this is the first series version. This is a re-release of the Figma. The first one sold out, but it's pretty much identical, I think. If you had pre-ordered these from a Good Smile shop or other places, you got an additional hero mask head that you could swap out, which you really never see him use in the series more than like once or twice. We're just used to seeing his exposed face. So I mentioned there are variant heads, but first we're going to do is put on the neck cowl. And it just goes like so, and you just peg it back in. Pretty easy. And then for this part, the hair separates from the front, which is a weird look, but okay. And then we can swap his face out with a more aggressive Deku. I don't believe you can actually get the mask over his face like that. It's just sort of hangs out. But now he looks more aggressive. Like All Might, Deku has signature moves, which they are named after American cities and towns and such. So Deku has adopted the same thing when he has kind of his ultimate attacks. And this one was called the Delaware Smash. And for those of you who aren't familiar with My Hero Academia, Deku has this extreme strength, but he can only use a portion of that strength. Because early in the series he would injure himself when he would try to use it. So with some help from the support staff at the academy, he has some gloves on now that helps regulate the damage. And this attack, I think, is really just he flicks his fingers and the pressure from the wind blows his opponents away. So I think that's actually very cool, and it's cool that they included that effect with the figure. You can see the addition of the Figma stand allows you to get a little more of a dynamic pose out of the figure. I will say though that the fit between the peg and the back of the figure is exceptionally tight. You might find that during posing that the more extreme poses the stand can't do it, but there's a little screw inside these holes. So one of the essentials in my toy collecting toolkit is this little screwdriver, and it comes in so handy, especially with these little stands where you can just tighten up the joint a little bit, and now you don't have that same problem. Just remember, one, don't over tighten it because you'll strip the screws. It is plastic. And yeah, just don't over tighten it, I guess. That's pretty much all there is to that. The other thing I recommend that everybody have in their toolkit is an X-Acto blade, and I'll explain that in just a minute. And here's his surprised or embarrassed or shocked face. It's usually when something doesn't go right or he's put himself in a compromising position that is embarrassing. So it's a pretty cool thing. But here's the cool accessory is, let me zoom out a little bit here. This sheet of plastic sweat drops. So one, you get a lot of them so you can reuse them, or you could have them sweat a lot. And essentially you just peel the plastic back on the paper. I'll actually use a X-Acto blade. And then you can just take one of these off the paper, plastic mind you, and just place it where you want on the figure. That is not where we want it on the figure, but you get the idea. I'll fine tune it off camera. So I don't know if it's clear because it's a very subtle effect, but you can see he's got the teardrop or sweat mark right under his eye there. Let's see if I can get that to zoom. It's neat. I will likely never use it, but it's a cool thing that they included. So one of the things you have to decide with these figures is how you're going to pose them. In terms of shelf display, what aspect of the character do you want to convey? And for me, I had some three choices: angry, afraid, and happy. And to me, Deku he's happy, he's optimistic. There's some struggles, but he ultimately wants to be a hero to save people like his idol All Might. So that's the fate that I want to show with him, so this is how I'm going to display him. Figmas are traditionally known for their quality, but I did have one small quality error, and that's this discoloration on the leg here. I don't know what it is, but it's on the leg. But that's really it. It's definitely not a... There are a lot of knockoffs out there. I got this from a reputable retailer, HobbyLink Japan again. So just be sure if you're buying these things, if you want to, just keep with the originals. Bootlegs are, they're not worth it. Ultimately, you're just going to be unhappy with the whole experience. Thank you again to HobbyLink Japan for providing this figure for review. Be sure to visit them and give your money to legitimate licensed sellers of Figmas, because there are a lot of crappy bootlegs you can find on eBay. Don't do that. Get them from a reputable online source. This has been Josh from CollectionDX. We'll see you later.